find Calvary, we're going to have a fire.
But you know, when I go into one, I look at everything. I try and look for things that the beekeeper might not be noticing. And I'll start on the very outside if I can, without tearing up anything. Generally, the queen, she's not going to be on the very outside.
This particular hive, folks, was what we call a trap out of an apartment complex in Fayetteville. I began this on April the 19th and I actually pulled this box down. I'll have to look on my phone what day I put it out here, but I inspected on May the 5th, and I've got a note on the frame there that I had some queen cells on. We're just basically looking to see if we've got, if we have a queen, if the cells have hatched. April the 22nd. Now there's a couple of bigger hives that are older hives. I couldn't move my really big hives, they were too heavy. So
if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, it's...
Well, if you got brood, you got a queen, don't you?
No, I put a frame of brood in it so they could make a queen
from an
egg. And this next frame is pulling.
One frame you will put in there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
And the rest of them are empty when you're
hopefully.
See, that's brood. That's brood. We've got 3 or 4 queen cells right there. I don't know if you can see
they're the longer ones, right?
Yeah. They're capped. Yeah,
so this is the 12.
Yep, those are queen cells too, and they have not hatched yet.
And that's exactly what we're looking for. That was my goal, was to put in this egg frame so they could generate their own queen.
Well, take that back. We have a hatched queen cell.
Okay.
You can see the hole in the side of it. So there's probably a virgin queen running around here somewhere. Well,
the way she's moving?
The way she's moving, the way the bees are moving out of the way for her, and her thorax, which is the middle section of her body, is got a bigger bald spot.
Okay.
And her color is going to be a little bit different from the rest of them too. And she's generally longer.
Good. So we have a queen in that hive now.
You have a queen.
I need to check it again in another week, 10 days, to make sure she's laying.
Ask you a question. You say this is a split box here?
It was a trap out.
Now what does that mean?
That means that there's an apartment complex that had bees in the wall.
Okay.
And I set up a stand and a box. I put bee escapes on it. I trapped them out of the building.
So
bee escapes.
Putting the foundations with the honey coating on it just attracts the bees
What I typically do, I'll put I'm trying to put a little bit of drawn comb in there. It doesn't necessarily have to be a full frame. A little bit of honey, and I fed them to start with. And then as they were trapped out of the building, they didn't have any place to go. My box is right by the entrance, and they go into the box, and I trap the bees into my box.
So they have like a one-way
escape. Yeah, they go out and escape, come back in.
Oh, okay. Right. So you can order those
Yeah, you can order them from any of the bee suppliers. Yes.
You do those risers, those 2 or 3 inch risers for
feeding. I feed with bags. That's okay. This one needs queen.
After you start one, how long do you feed them? Typically.
Depends on the nectar flow, and everybody's a little different. You may, and by the way, my opinion is my opinion. Everybody else may have a different operation, and I encourage everybody to get as many sources of information as they can. We learn that way, but as far as feeding this time of year, I feed very little. I like to see them do their work, and all this needs is a queen, and we can show you how to install a queen here.
A queenless hive, they're always going to be slightly more aggressive than one that has.
I killed this queen Wednesday or Thursday of this week, so.
Because you weren't getting any brood, or what?
Anytime you're working a hive, you want to be to the side of it or back of it. Try and stay out of their flight path.
What I usually do is I set the cage right on top of the hive and let them take to her. It usually doesn't take long if you're doing a split or you have a queenless hive for that queen pheromone to dissipate. Correct me if I'm wrong on anything I say, Amy. I think within typically if you do a split, you need to wait about 24 hours before you put a new queen in so they can take care. We have a live queen there?
Yeah. And they will, once, he's right, you give them a little bit of time for the old queen pheromone to dissipate, and then they should take right to her. And usually, what I'll do is just spread it just enough to get that in there, and try and put it in the center of the cluster, and always put the candy down. You know, put the candy up, it could melt in the heat and come down in there, and it could, you know, smother or suffocate. These cages are kind of nice, but put the candy down, or at least sideways. That way, there's no chance of it.
Well, that's what I kind of do, like that when I put them in.
Yeah, just like that. That's all you need to do.
Yep. And I'll check that in another 3 to 5 days to see that they've released her.
And there's no reason to. I mean, we know this hive's queenless, so there's not going to be any brood to look at.
There's really nothing else to do to that hive right now except install that queen.
And like I said, they
How many frames?
There's a 10. That's
you got drawn out in that.
There were several frames of brood, but not satisfactory. That hive should have done a lot better. It was actually that hive swarmed early in the year, and that's a swarm queen that I killed, but she was not doing her job. She was not laying like she should. I say several. I think there was only 2 frames of brood in that hive.
Now, is that screen, that screen, is that the queen separator there?
That's a queen excluder on top, yeah.
And what's the stuff in the baggie? Is that food?
I feed with bags. That's how I feed my bees.
Okay.
There's different methods of feeding. That's just how I do it, and I use the spacers. I think it actually, that dead air space in wintertime actually insulates some too, and that's just my method.
Okay.
And then I use the bags. It works really good. I put a slit in. I actually reuse the bag. I put the slit toward the top third of the bag.
Oh, I see.
And I'll fill it with, well, you notice they're red, so we've been using that hummingbird feed.
Oh, okay. So you
And-
just use the syrup.
Right. Now this super, I just put it on, so it should be completely empty. It's pretty close to empty. A little bit of drawn in it, but not much.
What do you use for your smoker?
I've got wood chips in there because they were free.
It's smoking quite a while.
Yeah.
Go out after pretty quick. Wood chips.
When West Tree Service trimmed all the trees around here, I had them dump a bunch on my
Just the
farm.
big chunks like that?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's got a mixture, small, big, everything.
On that first hive that you had all the queen cells in, since there are several queen cells, when that first queen emerges and she's in there now,
She'll kill the rest of them.
She'll kill
She probably already has, actually.
Okay.
Don't you think, Eamon?
Usually that's what happens.
And she'll go around and sting each one of those queen cells, and then they'll tear it down and discard the. They'll clean it up.
I have seen up to 8 queens running around the same hive. And it doesn't take, but eventually they'll settle it.
Yeah, the strongest survives in that case.
Sometimes more than one. Sometimes more than one will make it, and you'll have 3 or 4 swarms leave within an hour.
And then how do you encourage them to make queen cells? Do you use them
They'll make one out of an egg. If a hive is queenless, on the 4th day that egg hatches, there's a small window, usually about 24-hour window, that they can begin a new queen.
This one's got a good brood nest up here. We've got some uncapped larvae, a few eggs in there, and that's on the very outside, well, second to outside frame, with a bunch of pollen packed around. A little bit of capped brood there.
I think as we get closer to the center, we'll see better. That next frame's
Caps.
That stuff, yeah.
You can set that outside on the frame rack if you want, Eamon. Give you more room, whatever you want to do.
I usually just, I'll pull one frame out.
Okay, that's fine.
And then leave everything else in, just scoot it over.
On a pretty sunny day, I'll have 3 out sometimes. Just more room to work.
Now that's a good frame and brood.
Yep. And I think the open cells are probably where the hygienic behavior, either they've hatched or they've uncapped them because of something wrong.
Right.
These are hygienic queens that I have. They're VSH queens.
That means they're good at getting rid of bad stuff.
Mites, yeah. Yeah, there's there's some drone comb over there.
Where'd you buy your queens, your hygienic?
A lot of what I've gotten is from Velvet Williams and Heavener.
Yeah. What does it cost to get something like that?
You'll just have to check with him. I actually have a deal going on with him where I'm making some tops, some galvanized tops for his breeder nukes, and we're swapping out. So just check with him and see what his prices are for you.
Why are you still feeding? If you don't mind me asking.
I'm not.
Oh, you're not? Okay.
I'm not feeding anything.
Okay.
And that's the drone right there.
No, that's just bird comb.
Just bird comb.
It's just trouble.
Well, they'll just fill it full of drone, and I'll go through them later and clean that up.
And I always, you want to have a purpose when you're going into your hive. You don't just want to go rambling through it just to look at everything. We've already found that got eggs. We know there's a laying queen in here. Don't need to find her really. The brood all looks good. It's a nice, strong, healthy brood pattern. So you want to get in and get out as quickly as you can, really.
Should you look at all the frames individually, or should you just?
I don't. If I see
the good brood going,
no. If I do,
happy.
sometimes I'll go through. If I suspect maybe that I'm looking for queen cells, then if I think the space has been limited and I'm concerned that I may have some cells in it, I may go through every frame looking for cells.
See that? You can kind of see the pattern. It's kind of a checkerboard pattern. It's because the wire's in the foundation. For whatever reason, they'll avoid it. That's not it's a little spotty, but it's not bad. And they're putting honey in a lot of those empty cells. So it's not as bad as it looks. You can really see it on that one if the bees weren't there.
You got some holes in that last frame. It's not mice or anything, is it?
It could be a combination, I think, of what he said about them not using that because of the wire underneath the cell cap, or it could be the hygienic behavior too.
It could.
Where they've actually gone in and cleaned out. They've detected a mite under the capping and they've cleaned it out. That's possible too. That's what supposedly these this particular queen these queens are bred to do, is the hygienic behavior is bred in them so they can control your mite load in the hive.
That frame's going to be a good one to
compulsive house
do
cleaner,
the powder.
Okay.
Roll.
All right.
I'm going to show you how a real easy way to check for mites. Get a jar like this.
Can everybody see or have any questions? Feel free to ask any questions if you have them.
It's got a screen in the cap. It's just hardware cloth that's been cut to fit inside there. And
just number 8 mesh, right?
Number 8. And you want to get a frame of brood, capped brood. That's where the mites are going to want to be. They're going to want to be hanging out on bees around the brood. And that's what we got here. Good frame of bees. And I'm looking to make sure I don't have the queens. This isn't going to hurt them, but you don't want to agitate them any more than you have to. And it might stir them up a little bit. Just take your jar. And you want to, every time you do it, you want to be consistent. You want to get about 200 or 300 bees. But this has got the little marks on the side of it, and I always use that second one. Try to anyway. If it doesn't have the marks, just take a magic marker or something and draw you a line on there. And consistency is the key. That gives you a good relative idea of what you're looking at. And you don't scoop them up like that. You just lightly over the top of them, and they'll fall in there.
Cool.
It's in a black box.
And most of the time they don't really like it. But it works.
Underneath the table where the router table.
And then put your cap back on.
Not the table, not the big.
Give them a little bit of smoke, calm them down. And I may not have got it up to that line completely, but this is just for demonstration purposes, really. And some confectioner powdered sugar.
I don't think so.
And a good.
I have gentle bees.
Good hive tool scoop.
I don't know. That is a trait that most of the bees I've had from Velvet are very gentle. I haven't had any problem really at all. This is not the best day to be inspecting bees.
No.
It's really not. Normally I would not go into a hive today.
Why is that?
The overcast. They're a lot calmer on a sunny day when they're out flying, it's a lot easier to go into a hive.
Oh, okay.
And I've usually if I get stung, it's because I've grabbed one. I've pinched myself. But
Once you get your powdered sugar in there on top of them, just kind of roll them around in it. You can shake them a little bit. You don't need to get too rough with them. And what this is doing is the varroa mite has little pads that are adapted to hang on to the fuzzy legs of a bee. And with the powdered sugar, it makes it to where they can't hold on very well, and so they'll fall off. And stir them around for about 30 seconds, roll them around in there, and that'll dislodge the mites.
You don't think they like that?
And then when I'm using this pan's not the best, but it's light enough color that it'll work. You want a white one would work better. It doesn't have to be near this big either. And then after you shook them up pretty good, you just take and shake that powdered sugar out of there. And hopefully find a mite.
I hope we don't.
Hopefully not.
Not a single one.
Do you treat for mites?
If I see a necessity to, yeah. Yes.
I'm not finding any yet.
What do you use to treat them?
I tried soft chemicals. I really don't think it's a good idea to use hard chemicals. Not against it if it became totally necessary, but matter of fact, in August we're going to have a gentleman from the Tulsa Club come over, and he's got some really good information. He's an attorney over there, and he's done a lot of research on toxins in the hive and toxins from the chemicals we use.
And I didn't see any come out of there.
That's good.
So that's good. But most of the time when you do have them in there, they'll come out, and sometimes it can be kind of hard to see because they're going to be covered with sugar too. But most of the time they'll land on their backs, and their little legs will be kicking up in the air, and you can kind of sift through them a little bit. If it was a smaller pan, it works better in a light color. But you can pour some water in it and get that sugar to dissolve, and those mites will just kind of float up to the top. But not
you don't
one.
see any at all.
Not any.
Hallelujah.
So is there organic methods
I'm proud of not
controlling
having any
mites?
mites.
As
That's
opposed
not
to
one of my
using,
best hives.
Well,
like I said,
a lot of people just use powdered sugar, and they'll sprinkle it, over the hive every week or so. And it does the same thing. If you've got screened bottom boards, the mites will let loose, and they'll fall through fall down the bottom theoretically.
so just sprinkle powdered sugar in
it's a
between
mechanical
there.
method of powder treatment.
Yeah.
To answer your question, ma'am, that's another mechanical method.
It's
Some people,
environmentally
you
friendly.
could put a drone frame in there, and they'll build drone comb on it, and the mites love the drone because they have a 24-day window for them to rebreed.
Now I'm going to put
They love drone. As a matter of fact, if he finds some drone comb here on one of these, he's got a cap and scratch, and we'll uncap some and see if we find any.
you put it all back together. When you let those bees loose, they
Using that powder.
brood if you can. Doesn't really hurt, but brood can be very sensitive, especially uncapped brood. And put everything back. That's a healthy hive. No mites.
You didn't see any small hive beetles in there?
Haven't seen any yet.
I went somewhere the other day where a guy was selling, he was making hives and the frames and everything out of cedar. Is there any reason, any preference?
Yeah, Mark Eaton in the club.
Is Mark doing that too?
Mark makes
he
a
makes
lot of
them
stuff
out
out
of
of cedar, yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that. Gosh,
They're really pretty.
yeah,
I know
they're
that.
very- they really are.
I was wondering
Probably
the same
last
thing,
longer.
whether it affected bees or not, but
It doesn't.
he says it doesn't, yeah.
It doesn't affect the bees, no, and it probably lasts longer than some of the other woods out there.
And they cost.
Yeah. So after they hatch, how long before they actually start laying eggs? So that
She's right there in the center.
Oh, yeah.
That varies somewhat. Some of it's dependent upon the weather.
It's not a drone?
They don't want to go out on the mating flight on a day like this, really. But some of the good weather we've had lately has been really good for breeding. They'll usually hatch, and sometimes they'll go out on a mating flight
Oh, okay.
from 1 to 3 days. And sometimes it may be 5 to 7 days before she'll leave the hive for a mating flight.
You can see down into these cells, just a little tiny white dot down in there.
Okay, yeah.
And you can kind of tell I
Split. One frame of brooding eggs.
I don't know if everybody can see
you want those
this,
emerging
but,
bees that can take care of your new queen.
The burrow mite would prefer to be in the drone brood if it could be, and because it has a 3 day longer lifespan, life cycle in the pupa stage. And if you can get into some drone brood,
that's all kind of weather dependent.
The burrow mites are real easy to see on that white, right? They look just like a yearling tick.
Those look good.
They do look good.
They look like a tick, huh?
Yeah, I mean they're very, very similar to what a tick looks like.
The drone cell is one that stands out, that projects out.
Mm-hmm.
What looks like a tick, a varroa?
The varroa, right?
Varroa mite.
Especially on the pupae, on the...
And you're not, yeah, it all looks good. And I wouldn't be alarmed if, you know, you're pulling these out like that and you find varroa mite, 1 or 2 varroa mites here and there, because everybody's going to have them. But if we were pulling every one of those out and they had 2 or 3 mites on them,
That'd be time for concern.
yeah.
You're doing this just for demonstration, right? That's not how you find out how bad your mite problem is it?
It's a good indicator. It's a good way to look.
Yeah.
It is a good way to look. You're not going to want to go digging around in your worker brood like that.
Right.
But the drones, you know, there's plenty of drones to mess with. And that's where the mites would prefer to be, if there was any. That's just a good way for you to know, you know, to look for them. Because sometimes, you know, I mean, it's hard, it's difficult to spot a mite on the back of a bee crawling around. It's a whole lot easier to see them on that white brood. But that looks good.